Welcome to Oakland Is. I'm Jerri Lange, and we're going to be talking about the community and you. Our guest is Lamont W. who's a consultant and community activist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, we've been talking earlier tonight about some of the things that you've been doing, and you've been very, very busy, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Tell us some of the things that you've been doing in the community.
Well, I've been secretary for the Hayward branch of the NAACP for the last 10 years. I've helped start a number of nonprofit organizations, everything from Each Child Count, which is an organization that helps children in Liberia. I've started or helped start an organization for the, prayer for it's a television program, a mentoring program, Mentoring Inc., just a number of nonprofit organizations that are in the community and active and working.
Well, tell me what your goals are.
My goal is to try to help black people realize just how great we are. We're a sleeping giant, and the whole nation needs to know just how great we are and what we can become. The only people that don't know how great we are, in my opinion, is us.
Well, I think one of the reasons is because we watch the media. We read newspapers, we read television and magazines, and go to the movies, and we don't see a positive thing going on. And it's important that we know what we've overcome.
True.
And we were talking earlier about the history of black people just running away from the plantation without speaking any languages, without knowing anything, not knowing the territory, following the Northern Star and their faith in God. I mean, that takes a lot of courage.
Well, the Middle Passage, to survive the Middle Passage was a big thing in and of itself. Because a lot of the history says that a lot of the slaves came from inland, and so the first time they saw the ocean was when they were getting on the ship to come to America. And to see something that vast and not know where it was going to end, then to come to a country that you knew nothing of, with a language that you didn't understand, and all of your religions, your religious beliefs, all of your history, all of your everything that you knew was taken from you. And then you're in a foreign land, and then you're made to work without a paycheck. It had to be very disheartening.
Well, you know, back in the 70s, I visited the Isle of Gorée.
Yes.
And it was quite something, because they have something called the door of no return. And the door of no return meant that the slaves were processed, and then there was a door of no return, just shaped just like this. And it was, the ship was waiting for you out there. Now, some of the slaves rebelled and ran. They were shot. Some of them jumped into the ocean rather than get on the ship, and they were probably fighting with sharks before too long. And the other ones had to get on the ship. But you never got back through that door. You only had 3 choices, but you never returned. So it's called the door of no return. And when you stand there, it's almost as though you can feel those people in that room that are still struggling.
Yes.
That presence was there, and you can feel it very, very much. And it tells you from the beginning of that trip to the trip across the ocean, which was horrific, to then landing on land to face even more terror. I tell you, we are a great people. I can tell you that.
Well, the insidiousness of it that I went through reading, when I found out that the slave masters would go and get particular races of people who had skills, people who knew how to handle horses, people who know how to farm, people who know how to weave, and they would bring people here specifically with those skills in mind. We, on the other hand, when we were coming, we didn't have any idea of where we were coming or why we were coming. And then 300 years later, some of those skills still present themselves because you do things and you have no idea. I was at a park, and I saw some kids. This was during the Olympics, and the Olympics are coming up now, and the kids were doing flips. And they were just flipping and flipping and running and flipping and twisting. And if they were in the Olympics, they would, showing up the signs 10 or 9 or whatever. These kids had no training. It was just a natural ability that they had.
That's right. Well, you know, we were the original horse whisperers.
Yes.
And we were the original jockeys.
Yes.
Yes, we were the ones that we could race those horses because they felt a kinship. So I think part of our gift has been, whether it's this creativity you're talking about, is we were born with a harmony with nature.
Yes.
And I think with the universe. And that's something I think anyone would envy. So I think there's been a lot of that going on, of people trying to get in harmony with the universe, not knowing how to get in touch with the universe, but all the while punishing those who are in touch with the universe. And I'm happy to say that I think that's changing.
Yes.
I think they're realizing now that there's something that we can give and that we can share. And that's why I think that more and more it's not going to be our talking necessarily about just black people, but joining with other people of color. And I think that other people of color have so much to give us, and we have so much to give them. Because I think it's very hard in the 21st century to do anything by yourself.
Yes.
Even by one race.
Yes.
And I think the Caucasian race realizes now, when they got into a war, they went around the world trying to get other countries to help them fight, because they couldn't do it by themselves. So nobody can do anything by themselves. We live in a different world. And that's why this whole idea of the community is so great, because this is the positive message now.
Yes.
If you're not going to do it now, I don't think you're ever going to do it.
Well, I heard somebody say we may have came over in different ships, but we're in the same boat now.
That's right, and it's sinking fast.
Well, we had talked earlier where I would like to see people pick something that they're interested in. PTA, city council, police league, any meetings, because as I go around to the various meetings, every time I go to a meeting, I see the same people at all these meetings.
Right.
If we had talked about having these various organizations, from the Alpha Phi Kappas to the Deltas to the UNSI clubs, the Midwest parties, the professional groups that we have, and pick a media person. You talked about having a media person, and have that person go to these meetings and attend and get the information. We're in an information age. The more you know, the better off you'll be. And then once a quarter, everybody comes together and share that information.
That's right.
And everybody be the better for it. Everybody, because we had talked about if you're working, trying to make a living, you're raising a family, when you come home from work, the last thing you want to do is go to a meeting.
Absolutely.
But we have to show the worth of you going to that meeting.
Yes.
Now, the PTA is one of the things I think about. A lot of our kids go to school, and the parents don't attend the PTA meeting. They don't know what's going on at the school.
They don't.
And sometimes you have teachers who are really giving our children a bad.
Absolutely.
And I had worked as a substitute teacher, and I remember I had a kid 6 foot tall, 180, 200 pounds, and he stood up and kind of yelled. And I told him to set his butt down. Who do you think he's talking to? Now, in another class with a different teacher, he'd have been sent to the office. That means that child would have missed out on a day's education because he acted out. And acting out, he was frustrated. It wasn't that he was a bad kid, he was a frustrated kid. And we have to learn how to deal with the frustration. When you get older, if you get frustrated like that, you get fired from your job. If you get fired from your job, then you know, you'll have a hard time making it. So we need to have community people in the community going to these various meetings, because these meetings affect us.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and we need to have people who are going to help explain what's going on. Because when I walk, as a member of the NACP, we walk into a business, and right away the buzz starts. The NACP is here. The NACP is what's going on, what's going on. That same idea can happen if we band together, not just for the bad times, but for the good things, to come and show that there's positive things that can be done if we work together with all the races.
That's right. And I think if we share, for instance, the burden, because we do know that people are tired and they're raising their families and so forth and so on. But if you have a media committee, then one person, you only go to maybe one meeting a month, and then you get your report and you turn your report into the minutes so that you have a record of what happened at that meeting.
Yes.
And then you have something that you can print. I know I'm on several boards, and one of them is an aging board. You know, I call it, we deal with the aging. And they run it so well, because they send out a monthly bulletin. We know everything that goes on in that building. Or, you know, we know these are housing for the seniors. And I don't have time to find that information, but I get that information in a packet before those meetings, and I know more about housing and everything else, and how many units are vacant, and you know, and the activities. They profile the new people that come in, and that's the way. And I love being on board. People say, why do you go on boards? I said, because I learn how the companies and the corporations that run this country work.
And when you
They give people information.
Yes. Yes.
And now they're doing it without it flying because they're doing it, you know, when there's monitors and PowerPoints. And so what I'm saying is that we're in the information age. And this is the age, the 21st century, that if you do not have information, you don't have anything.
Yes.
Because it's now worth money.
Yes. We went to McDonald's to get a hamburger, and the young lady behind the counter was punching on the computer. You know, you said you wanted a Big Mac and fries and a drink, and she wasn't writing it down. She was punching on the computer. So no cheese, no onion.
That's why she got it all down.
And so you have to know how to use the computer. The information age is something that if our young people don't go to school, if they don't get the education, and we had talked before, what my grandmother told me a long time ago, you have to get twice the education and expect half of the credit. And a lot of our young people don't understand that if you get the education, don't start talking about it's not fair.
No.
That's not right. We had talked about a lot of things that are legal are not necessarily fair and or right.
No.
It is legal to avoid taxes. It is illegal to evade taxes.
Yeah.
And you got to understand the difference. When a young man is driving down the street in his car and his taillight is out, he's given the police the authority to stop him. Now, it may not be right, and there are a number of people driving down the street without a taillight, but if your taillight is out, he has the authority, the legal right to stop you. And if he stops you, your job is to explain that you didn't know your taillight was out or to get it fixed or whatever. But don't get caught up on that's not fair and that's not right. And as a 10-year-old black boy, diversing real quick, in basketball, there was a story that if you're getting ready to start 5 players, 3 players, you start 3 black players at home, you start 4 black players on the road, and you start 5 black players if you're behind. And the thing is, if you want to win, that's what you did. I didn't realize in 1966, when Texas, El Paso, I think it was the first school that started 5 black players, and they beat a Kentucky basketball team with 5 white players. That was the first time in NCAA history that 5 black players played for the championship and won. 1966. That's not that far ago.
No, it's not.
And when you talk about the passage from the Middle Passage, 300 years of slavery that we've been enduring, and the remnants of slavery, we're still going on.
Absolutely.
And in 2008, as a member of the NAACP, I see racism is alive and well. And it's a lot of things. No longer do you have the blatantness, for the most part, of the white sheets and calling names. People have on 3-piece suits. They have on white shirts. They have on ties. They treat you very nice, and they're just as racist as any Ku Klux Klan member you ever want to meet.
That's right.
And we need to realize that a lot of things that are happening today are happening because we allow it to happen. We don't go to the PTA meetings. We don't go to the city council meetings.
No, we don't.
And
they pass laws and we don't know anything about it until they're done.
Well, you had said something about there are people that watch things happen, there are other people that make things happen, and there are other people that say what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have to start getting in on what's going on in our community. One of my other things that I talked about is when you go to the community meetings and you actually talk about community watch, because if you start having a lot of robberies in your community, most likely it's somebody that lives there. People don't generally travel from another part of town to come rob your house.
That's right.
It's somebody that
knows the territory.
Right. And if we set up a community watch where we all know our neighbors, because in this day and age, a lot of times you don't even know who your neighbor is.
You don't know, and it's dangerous not to know who your neighbor is.
Right. And if we can set up a community watch where we can talk about, you're going to leave tonight and you're going to dinner and you won't be home until 11 o'clock. So if I hear a noise in your apartment or your house next door at 9 o'clock, I said, I thought Miss Lange said she was going to dinner.
Yeah.
So I'll call the police.
That's right. You have to watch out for each other.
And that's the whole thing. We need to start watching out for each other. And a lot of times we're so insulated. We had talked about where professional people sometimes won't get the help. They won't band together the way they should. I hate to say the word should, the way they could, because it would be beneficial for all parties if they would band together. We were in a investment club, and part of the deal was if you had $1,000, you could invest. Well, it makes sense if you know anything about finance. $10,000 is an easier investment than $1,000.
Of course.
So 10 people, each having $1,000.
Together.
It works. It works. And it's just another form of how the community action works.
How has your education as a lawyer helped you in pursuing some of these goals?
The law in this country is such that it benefits to know what the law is. And you can explain to people a lot of times that these are the things that you have to do. Now, it may not make sense to you, but there's procedures. The law has very rigid procedures that you must follow in order for you to get what you're after. When you file a lawsuit, you can't just say that he cheated me. You have to file the necessary paperwork. You have to show with the evidence that you were cheated, that you felt that you were not treated in a fair way. One of the things that's happening now is that discrimination, even though it's live and well, is very hard to prove now because they've changed the laws. Very seldom does somebody come out and just call you out of your name. But they will do subtle things. They will do things to you that will, while you know is racism, it's
You can't
hard to
prove it.
You can't prove it.
That's right.
And so being educated in the law, it makes me aware of some of the things that these people are doing, and I note what they're doing so that I can come back and have the evidence later to prove whatever allegations I'm trying to prove against them. No.
Well, what are some of the things we can get together to start getting people to get together to do? For instance, we talk about our social groups that are, you know, we have a lot. Black folks have more social groups than anybody I know. And then we have these family reunions.
Yes.
That's a good place to do it, too. So I'm thinking if we took some of the things that we are comfortable doing all the time and organized a group of people within those comfort areas, I think it would be a much easier thing than just saying, let's go out and do something that they're not used to.
Well, one of the things, the church.
Absolutely.
There was a time when the church was a center of activity for all black folks anyway. And young people learn how to speak. We had talked before about people would rather die than get up in front of a group of people and speak.
Right.
Well, the church would give you that confidence, would give you that training on how to get up and speak in front of a group of people. In the entertainment field, you constantly hear people say that they learn how to sing in the church.
That's right.
And then they go out to the secular world and start singing. So one of the things we can do is have meetings in the church and get people to understand that information is very important, and have the church be one of these centers where we can fan people out going to these various meetings. We talk about the investment clubs. That's where you feel comfortable with your friends and start talking about some of the political avenues that they can take. The Alphas and the Kappas, all the Greeks, have some meetings where they can start talking about getting out and getting the word out. Some of the community, the NACP, the Urban League, those are organizations where we already have the structure. The infrastructure is in place. So the next thing to do is to take it to the next level and have people from those groups go out and start getting involved in the political field. Now with our present Barack Obama running for the highest office in the land, it's time to get into the political arena.
Absolutely.
Because politics can change the face of this nation.
That's right.
If you know about the politics, any laws that are changed, and again, when you ask about the legal training, any laws that are trained, you can explain to the community what those laws are and how they affect you. One of the laws that came into being July 1st. You now must have an earpiece in your ear.
That's right.
You can't use the phone. You can't have
Something like $200 or something.
Now, suppose for whatever reason you were under a rock and you didn't know that.
That's right.
You're throwing away $200.
That's right.
I didn't
Fasten
know.
the seatbelt.
Fasten the seatbelt. Children must have a seatbelt harness. I didn't know that young people below 18, I believe it is, can't even talk on the phone. Period.
No.
No, so they can't even have an earpiece talking on the phone. So that's why it's important for you to know some of these laws that are out. And they change the laws every day. I mean, not every day,
Yeah,
but they change the laws
all the time.
all the time. And one of the things they talk about, they're changing the laws for this housing market that we're in. There was a time, if you purchased a house and you lost your house, say you bought a house for $500,000 and the house dropped in value to $400,000, and the house was sold and you took a $100,000 loss, then the following year the IRS would send you a 1099 for $100,000. So if you were making $50,000 for your year, you now were making you'd have to pay taxes on $150,000. And now that this housing fiasco is happening, the laws have changed. So now they no longer 1099 you for that $100,000 loss if you suffer.
In other words, you can't get it now.
Well, it used to be it was a penalty for you selling your house less than what you bought it for. Now they don't put that penalty on you.
Oh.
See, so it's good for people to realize some of these things are beneficial to them.
That's right.
And then we talk about the housing market too. if you have any money, now is the time to buy a house.
I know that's what, yeah.
We need to get the word out because people don't wait. I mean, the interest rates may go down, but
People are picking those houses up for change, chump change.
and they're going to be, the housing market is going to go back up.
Yeah,
No.
I know, and the Europeans are coming over and foreign countries because the dollar's so low.
The dollar is so low, it is cheaper for people to come over here and have a vacation than it is
Absolutely.
for us to go over there and
Pick
have
up a house and go on back home.
Yeah, yeah. So I was reminded, I heard on the news that China, they instituted a plan where cars with even numbered license plates would drive one day and cars with odd numbered license plates would drive another day. In 3 days' time, the air was clean.
You see that?
You could see the blue sky. And so
There's always a way.
there's a way, but we have to be thinking of a way that we can work together. I was reminded when I was in school, I took trigonometry, or I should say trigonometry took me. The parents today say they have a hard time explaining to their children about math. Well, we have adult classes. So if you want to help your child in math, you go to school. You take that adult class so you can help your child in his or her classes.
Right.
Again, it's a commitment.
That's right.
Now, I know you're tired. I know you worked all day, but there's a greater thing that can be done if you will go ahead and commit yourself. Then your child will see that, hey, mom and dad, they worked all day, but they're going to commit themselves. Then that will help them to commit themselves. I know when I was coming up, one of the things we always talked about in the community was how the community worked. I had a lady named Miss Reed, and I laugh now because Miss Reed's job was to get Lamont in trouble. She would tell my mother, I saw Lamont doing whatever. And I would say, Mama, I didn't do that. And she'd say, oh, Miss Reed is lying. Well, you knew you couldn't call Miss Reed a lie. But Miss Reed kept me on the straight and narrow. Nowadays, we have to really inform parents that if an adult tells your child to stop doing something, he's not usurping your authority. He's trying to help your child. So don't get mad at the adult for trying to help your child do it.
Exactly.
And again, it goes back to the community, how you can be an effective force in the community. And we seem to have lost that community feeling, that community understanding. And I know, again, and then I think I'm dating myself, but it would be from the neighborhood, I would get a whooping from somebody in the neighborhood, and I would get another one. Because my mother would say, well, you wouldn't have got a whooping unless you did something wrong.
So I'm a whooping again.
And it would keep you on the straight and narrow.
Absolutely. Well, you know, there's two things that come to mind. First of all, if you can get it across to the parent that by their expanding their horizons in their mind, they're going to have a better life. Yes. Because they're going to find more things of interest. I know I went back to college at 36 years old and didn't know I scored 98.2 in the entrance exam. And they said, well, you're a writer. We're going to put you in English literature. And I had to read the 10 great writers of the world. Europeans, didn't matter where they were, they had to be the great writers. Whatever little small problems I had disappeared. I'm sitting here reading about the world, and it changed my life.
Yes.
And this is why I guess since I've become an author. But the other thing would be that if it's so cheap now, inexpensive, to go to get the copier and type up something and get some information. If you had a little small booklet that you could print, and it takes nothing to publish it now, and you publish information of interest to black people in their community, that if they if they went to this meeting, you're going to find out about a new tax reforms and how you can save, let them know they're going to save dollars on their tax, and everybody's worried about their income tax. Then about health care, everybody wants to know about how to stay healthy now because nobody has any health plans, you know, and the ones who did have the health plans have to find a new way to stay healthy. They know that they can't afford to get sick. So suppose you had a section on that.
Yes.
Now we're talking about maybe getting a medical doctor to write something that week or that month, and a tax expert to tell about taxes, and then you talk about places to go, how to learn to use the computers.
Yes.
You know, things like that. If you found out what black people were interested in, and then put out a monthly bulletin or a weekly bulletin that told them if they came to this thing, they would find out how to do it. And if they came to that meeting, you see what I'm saying? So, so it's almost like putting a carrot out there.
Yes.
They're just too tired just to go. But if they figure that they can save something on their taxes, or they can stay healthy, or they have high blood pressure, well, we have a man coming on now that I've already done 2 shows with him. I said, this man can tell people about alternative health care. And everybody needs that now, because now they don't have the health care plan that they had.
Yes.
So they want to know what they should eat, how they could feed their families. And so he's going to be on every week now. We're going to have it's Dr. James Otis.
All right.
And the reason we brought him on is he's telling people how to stay healthy at a time when you can't afford to get sick.
Well,
And that's an incentive.
Very much so. Well, one of the things that they talk about with all of the diabetes, with the high blood pressure, with the heart disease and everything else, stress is still the biggest killer.
Absolutely.
And if you can learn how to, and I'm going to make a word up, de-stress yourself,
Yes.
and do things that you enjoy, go places. There are so many places that are free.
That's right.
I mean, when my daughter was born, and my money was very funny, and I would talk her into going to the park, because the park was free.
Yeah.
we could walk around the park, we could play in the sand, we could play basketball, whatever. And now I think about things that you enjoy. Going to the show, taking a walk, sitting outside on your porch, reading a book. Reading is a novel thing.
Oh, I love reading.
If you read, you can go all around the world just in a book.
Well, it'll take you everywhere. And I wish we had more time, because we were just getting started here. But Lamont, Allen, it's just been a pleasure talking with you. You're dedicated, and you're doing a beautiful job, and God's going to bless you whether they come to those meetings or not. But I hope we've given our viewers some kind of suggestions and an understanding of how things work, and that, you know how you get a democracy working? You have to make it work.
Very true.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.